Welcome to another review. Now, I must apologize for my last video. I said it was episode 376. It was actually 346. My mistake. I wanted to correct that right here. This review, I'm going to talk about Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, my basically thoughts on it. And of course, Edgar and I are going to do reviews on the actual episodes when they come up on his channel. But I figured, though, why not give my personal thoughts on both these two series. Starting with Naruto. Basically, Naruto. Now, what people don't know about this particular, people may not know, it's based upon a manga. Yes, basically, it's Japanese comic books. Here's it. Just a second. Where are you? Sorry about that. A lot of the canon episodes are based upon this, the Naruto manga. And like a lot of manga, it's published in black and white. This is an omnibus book that collects 3 of the volumes. This collects volumes 7 through 9. But, yeah. The manga itself is 700 chapters. I've read through a little bit of it so far. I've read almost the first, almost close to the first 110 chapters so far. I'm currently on volume 13 right now of the 72 volume manga. There are 2 parts to it. Part 1 was collected in the first 27 volumes, and starting with volume 28, it becomes part 2, and basically it stays that way to volume 72. But they do the one thing I've heard from the about the creator of Naruto. His name is on here. His name is Masaaki Kishimoto. He is a big fan of Dragon Ball Z because of the Dragon Ball franchise. He's a huge fan of it, and I've heard he has a statue of Frieza himself in his office. And pretty much, since DBZ, the Dragon Ball franchise was known for its various time jumps, he did 2 time jumps. I think he did 2 or 3 of them over the course of the entire manga. The first one happened at the end of part 1, basically volume 27, where he jumped ahead about 3 years later. Now, when the series first starts out, Naruto is, I believe, 12 years old, and even the show he's 12. It's mentioned it's been 12 years since the Nine-Tailed Fox basically went on a rampage in the Hidden Leap Village. And it's also referenced in the show as well. I've been reading the manga recently. I started not long after I start watching the show. I started it about a week or 2 ago reading the manga. Yeah, it's a long manga. But I read the entirety of the Dragon Ball manga. And of course, I've also read the long-running series like Batman, Amazing Spider-Man. I've read all these comic books. So going through 700 chapters is not a really big problem with me at all. Now, from what I can tell, when they adapted the manga into the show, they pretty much for the first 6 episodes, it's based upon 1 chapter apiece, and then starting with episode 7 up until episode 19, it's an adaptation of a bunch of chapters. Basically, it's the first major arc, which is the Zabuza arc. Basically, he's this badass rogue ninja from the Hidden Mist village. Yeah, there are several villages. There is the village Hidden Mist, Rain, Waterfall, Cloud, of course, the Hidden Leaf Village. There's also one hidden in the Waterfall for some reason. And there's also one explained later on called Hidden Sound Village. Yeah. Aside from Naruto himself, there's also characters like Sakura, who was a potential love interest for Naruto, but I'll tell you in a minute who's his actual love interest. There's also Sasuke, who is basically his rival / best friend. Basically, they make up Team 7, which is captained by Kakashi Hiruto, I think I pronounced his last name. He's known as the Copy Ninja. Also known as Kakashi of the Sharingan because he has a Sharingan eye. And a lot of time when he was seen very early on, when you see him, he has part of his headband covering up his Sharingan eye for a very good reason. And that's the way he's normally depicted. And also, when you see him pull it up, he's got a scar across his eye. He actually got that in combat prior to him getting the actual eye. It's explained in one of the episodes in Naruto Shippuden that actually he got that from a friend of his named Obito Uchiha, who's kind of similar to Naruto himself, who had a dream to become Hokage. Of course, later on he did get that accomplishment dream. Where he basically was rescuing the woman he loved, a woman named Ren. So he went to rescue her, despite the fact he defied Kakashi's orders not to go out. Basically, Kakashi wanted to fulfill the mission. Obito wanted to rescue the woman he loved, which he hadn't a chance to tell her yet, despite the fact Ren was also attracted to Kakashi, which is a similar situation with the current Team 7. So they go and rescue her. Of course, Obito, who had not activated his Sharingan, had not activated his eyes yet. Basically, Sharingan finally activated when he killed one of the kidnappers with one of his kunai knives, which it did help. And then, of course, they did save Ren. They released it from a jutsu that basically was allowing them trying to get information out of it. Ren basically is a Kirchhoe, I think it's pronounced. Basically, it's a female ninja, and she's also a medical ninja as well. And basically, Obito saved Kakashi's life when there was a cave-in, and he's because just prior to this, Kakashi had just been promoted to a Jonin. It's one of the ranks. Basically, there's Genin, Chunin, and Jonin. Basically, Jonin is basically a bit higher up and could basically be a mentor for future shinobi, basically ninja. He gets part of his body crushed, so as basically his parting gift to him before he passes away. Well, even though he really doesn't. He has Ren perform eye transfer surgery, give his Sharingan to Kakashi, and of course Kakashi later became Kakashi the Sharingan, also Kakashi the copy ninja. Yeah. And I should also mention, I actually watched, when I watched the first Naruto series, I watched it entirely dubbed. I didn't watch it subbed, I watched it dubbed. Shippuden, I watched it mostly dubbed, but pretty much the rest of it, starting with episode 98, I watched it subbed. Didn't have a really big problem with it. Despite the fact that I'm listening to Japanese, people speaking Japanese, I get translated subtitles. Not the first time I've seen this. I've actually gone to a series like this. I've watched several Super Sentai like this as well, and of course I've watched the Godzilla movies this way too. Watch them subbed. This topic I would have liked it dubbed. The dub basically is not really a big problem with me. Now, the guy who did the dub voice for Zabuza was Steve Bloom. Awesome voice actor, who is currently on Star Wars Rebels, voicing that guy who is the stand-in for Chewbacca, which I have heard was the original design for Chewbacca before they went to the actual one. He's also known for being the voice of Wolverine in a lot of the Marvel cartoons, and he's also been the voice of Deadpool. And he's also voiced Bullseye in a Punisher video game. Yeah, it's really bizarre. But I thought he was a great voice actor for Zabuza for the dub. He also voiced the main villain of Part 1, Orochimaru. If you see him, basically he's this guy with this pale white skin, purple eyeliner, snake-like eyes. He has this rope, basically this purple rope around his waist. A lot of the Sound Ninja basically are dressed like him too for some reason. I have no idea why. So, and he also has this thing with his tongue. He loves sticking his tongue out like he wants to taste something. And he has this thing where he obsessed with getting people's bodies. So he switches people's bodies every few years because apparently the bodies keep rejecting him for some reason. And his true form is basically a snake. That's basically what Orochimaru is. He's a snake. He was also one of the legendary Jonin. Shani, I think I'd say pronounce his name. Yes, Shani. Basically, back to Zabuza. Basically, if you see him, he's as bad at, well, he's got this big, huge sword, which he made a point of basically where he put his chairs like, okay, he wants to threaten the guy who's employing him basically to go out to kill this bridge builder. And his sword is so long, it basically covers an entire, like half a room. Yep. And he has this person with him named Haku, which if you look at him, he looks like a girl. I am not kidding. And in the manga, he's referred to as his consort. I'm like, is Zabuza gay? It's really bizarre, to say the least, of how Haku. As a matter of fact, half the time when I see little boys, the way they're depicted in the anime, they look like girls. I am not kidding about this. That is how they're pretty much depicted in the show. They look like freaking girls. I have no idea why the anime is known for doing this. And it's not the mistake of the anime to do this, basically because it was like this in the manga. Then after, of course, they defeat Zabuza, basically, he's a really good fighter. Heck, even after he lost the use of his arms, he basically asked Naruto to give him one of his kunai knives. Basically, of course, he ripped off the bandages that was around his mouth. Yeah, basically, when you see him a lot of the time, basically, his mouth is bandaged up. As far as I know, neither the manga nor the anime has bothered to explain this. Also, he's one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. And for some reason, I have no idea why this is, almost every single 7 swordsman has got razor-sharp teeth. For some reason. And they're basically, they're known for carrying swords. The swords are very weird. Like, you have twin lightning swords, a large needle. I'm like, what the heck? It's really, heck, there's even a sword that basically is used for eating up chakra. It's the energy they use in the show. Yeah, it's really bizarre, but they do explore a little bit of the 7 swordsmen a little bit later. Then after the course, they get through the Zabuza arc, which was really good. And then came to the Chunin exams. This took a long while to get through. Even the manga, it's really long. In the manga, it takes up like 7 volumes. It's longer than the Zabuza arc because it's mixed in basically with 3 rounds. You have the first round, which in the show is about 2 episodes. Basically, it's a 10-question test. Now, before I move on, I want to talk about the other characters introduced over the course of these episodes. You have Team 8, which is made up of Kiba, a guy basically known for training, basically fighting with his dog, Akamaru, basically, who in Part 1 is basically a puppy, though when he's younger he's much more smaller. In Part 2 he's basically the size of a wolf. And of course there's Shino, a insect user who basically is like that because apparently his family is known for basically breeding insects and having their bodies host to insects, which even though in normal life that would basically mean they would die. But it's weird in the show. And then of course there is Naruto's actual love interest, Hanada Hyuga. Basically in Part 1, basically she's known for wearing this coat. Kiba also wears the same type of coat as well. And she also wears like blue pants, which look like they're torn on the side. And a lot of the time when she's with Naruto, she always blushes. And then later on they added where she also faints as well, and her face turns red every time she sees Naruto. It's really weird. Yeah. And of course you also got 2 more teams, basically made up of the young Geni, basically that encompass most of the show, who get a lot of development. Team 10, I have no idea who Team 9 is. It's never shown. It's never explained in the show or the manga. Team 10 is made up of 3 people who are basically the children of the previous people who held the distinction of being part of the Choji formation. It's this trio, basically. It's basically 2 guys and a girl. That's one thing kind of odd, though. It's that every team is 2 guys and a girl. But I have seen also where some teams from their villages basically are comprised of basically entirely of women, or 2 women and 1 guy. This team is made up of Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. And Choji is known for his expansion jutsu, where he expands his body, and he also can form a human boulder. And he does not like to be called fatso. That really ticks him off, despite the fact he eats a lot. There's also Ino, who was a former friend of Sakura's, who was a rival for Sasuke's affections, who's got long hair, and she wears purple. And she still wears purple, even currently right now, though they change her look a little bit. And then, of course, there's Shikamaru, basically a guy who's known Naruto since they were kids, since they were basically Ninja Academy, and he's known for being a very lazy guy. He did not like taking tests at all. He basically barely moved a pencil, basically preferred to sleep than do stuff. But the guy is a genius. It's explained by his sensei, Ashima. Basically, he gave him an IQ test. And his test results, his IQ is over 200. He's a good strategist, too. And he does this. If you see him do this in the show, It's explained that it's a habit of his, basically, of how he develops a strategy. He's a good strategist. That's why after the Chunin exams, he becomes a Chunin. As a matter of fact, he's the only one who gets promoted. And of course, later in part 2, pretty much most of the characters get promoted anyways. Then, of course, they take on various characters. Of course, in the Chunin exam, there's one other team of people I have to talk about. Team Guy, led by, formed, and the team is made up of Rock Lee, Neji Hyuga, Hinata's cousin, and Tenten, my third favorite female character of the series. My number 1 is Hinata. Number 2 is Tamari, Gaara's sister. We'll talk about in a minute. Yeah, basically their specialty is taijutsu. Team 10 is basically, I think it's search and rescue. Team 8 is known for tracking. Team 7, I'm not really sure. I think they're known for, they might be known for like quick attacks in a way, but it's never been explained exactly what their specialty is, just that they like working together. And of course, there's also the Sand Shinobi siblings, basically of Gaara, Konkaru, and Tamari. Gaara is basically also known as Gaara the Desert. He basically controls sand. And like Naruto, who is a Jurigigi, I think it's a pronunciation. Basically, he's also host to one of the Tailed Beasts. It gets more proper explanation in part 2. Basically, he's a host to Shikaku, the Sand Demon. Naruto is host to Kurama. His name is later explained in part. His name is given in part 2. He's basically the Nine-Tailed Fox, and he's trapped behind a gate for most of the series until later on the gate is removed. The seal is still there, but the gate gets removed. And Gaara, when he's first introduced, he basically is frequently telling his brother basically knock it off or he kills him. Yeah, he does this frequently, and he basically is my favorite male character who is not Naruto because of how badass of a fighter he is. The guy uses sand to fight. Sand. Konkaru is known for being a puppet master. He uses his chakra to form strings out of his fingers to control his puppets. He's got, first he started up with one, then I think he added about another one. Later on, he's got 3 puppets, and then much later on, he gets more puppets. Yeah. And Tamaru basically is known for, if you see her, she's carrying on this big, huge fan. And she's basically a wind user. She's basically known for waving this fan a lot. I forgot the abilities of the characters. For Team 10, Ino is known for her mind transfer jutsu. It's basically used for spying. Shikamaru is known for his shadow possession jutsu, though it's known as, his father calls it shadow paralyzed jutsu, but Shikamaru calls it shadow possession jutsu. Of course, I've already explained Choji. Hinata and Neji basically are possessors of the Byakugan. Basically, it's these weird-looking eyes that apparently can also read chakra, and they also can check chakra points, and also their abilities range from things like Gentle Fist, which it can also knock out chakra points, and they also can do rotation or or a trigram, which basically, if you've seen the show, it looks like a yin and yang. And there's also the 64 palm, which basically involves just slapping like 64 times. It's a really neat move. Basically, both Hinata and Neji both know it. Kiba is basically known for doing his fang over fang or white fang over fang, basically forming a 2-headed wolf. Yeah, I'll get to later abilities later on. Of course, Naruto, basically, his only known ability is the fact that he knows some ninjutsu, and he basically uses shadow clones a lot. Later on, he does learn Rasengan during the course of between the second and third round.
So I'm going to wait a little before I go out. That client's not ready to see me today, right?
Okay. Yeah. He does learn Rasengan from Jiraiya, who was his father's sensei. Of course, he does not know who his father is until part 2. But it's really fun to see this. And of course, the second round is basically in this training field called the Village of Death. Naruto himself basically both in the manga and in the anime laughs at that. So what does Second Proctor do? She throws a kunai at him, cuts his face. In the manga, and of course they later did this in a filler episode where in Ultimate Reality she did this too, she also licked his cheek. I am not kidding. Basically, she is one of 2 women to ever do that in the show to Naruto. Lick his face. I'm like, that is weird. I get the reason why the anime decided not to put that in there, because it looks freaking weird. Yeah, it does. It looks really weird. And of course, also the one of the grass ninja, who later is Orochimaru, basically gives her back her kunai with his tongue. And I'm kind of like, she knows Orochimaru, and he's known for using his tongue. She also does the same thing as well for some reason. Now, if you see her, she's a smoking hot woman. And also, heck, when they brought her back for a filler episode, she still does the same thing of jumping behind Naruto for some strange reason. Yeah, for some reason she loves doing that. I just think that is so funny. Yeah. But, yeah, apparently it's also later revealed, and she's actually the only Proctor to get a real good amount of character development of the 3 of them. In an actual canon episode. The other 2 get development in filler. Yeah. Of course, the third round has 2 Proctors because the first Proctor was killed after the preliminaries. So, of course, they meet Orochimaru in the Village of Death. Pretty much, both the manga and the anime pretty much follow the same route. Of course, they meet Kabuto, who basically later revealed to working with Orochimaru. Pretty much at this point, it takes a while to get through. Of course, there's also one filler episode with episode 25 where it's a TV report. Not kidding, it's a TV report. And the Chunin exam pretty much takes up the rest of season 1, the entirety of season 2, and most of season 3 of Naruto. Yeah, I would say about half of season 3, because by the time they get to the 3rd round, pretty much everybody's had their fights. Of course, Neji, during the preliminaries, basically they had various fights. They had Neji fight Hinata, which Neji basically beat her pulp in at. Naruto fought Kiba. Gaara fought Rock Lee. Tenten fought Tamaru. Kankuro, I remember, I think he fights... wasn't Shikahama. I'm trying to remember, who did he fight? Oh yeah, he fought one of the Sound Ninja. Yeah, he fought one of the Sound Ninja. I think it was the guy who had his arms broke by Sasuke during the 2nd round. Yeah, apparently also in the 2nd round, Sasuke got bitten by Orochimaru with his dark mark. Which, yeah. Of course, about half people basically do progress. The only reason why they have preliminaries is because there was a lot of people who basically survived the Village of Death. But of the teams, the only team that pretty much of the 4 teams from the Elite Village, the only one I could think of who actually had all 3, the entire team pretty much survive. Actually, none of them did. Basically, Team 7 lost 1 because Sakura basically had lost her fight. Team 10 basically had only Shikamaru progress because he fought a woman. And he did the same thing also in the regular Chunin exam, though he fought the woman from the Sound Village who later came back in a filler episode. Choji lost very quickly in his last match. Yeah, the match itself in the episode lasted for barely a minute. It was by far the quickest fight I have ever seen. But it basically was interesting. When it came to Team 8, only Shina was the only one who progressed to the regular rounds. He was the only one who progressed because Hinata and Kiba got defeated. Well, pretty much everybody else, of course, Sasuke pretty much fought one of the other people. Gaara, now the only team of the teams who actually were in there who actually had a full team who survived was Gaara's team. Yeah, his team now, Gaara during his match with Rock Lee, he pretty much crippled Rock Lee for a little while until he got surgery to repair his arm and leg. But he was about to kill him, And then my guy stepped in. It's like, no, don't kill him. He's my student. And of course, when Tenten fought Tamaru, I mean, here's Tenten basically throwing all her weapons at her. Tamaru just breezes through. And the fight lasted a little bit longer than Choji and the guy from the Sound Village. And of course, Tenten lands on top of Tamaru's fan, and then he just throws her away. Of course, I think Rock Lee catches her, and he's like, "Don't you have any respect for your opponents?" And she's like, "Whatever." But it's something though for Team Guy. Team Guy and Team 8, only like one person actually managed to go to the next round, and it was also like that for Team 10 as well. Yeah. So they left that with 9. And of course, this guy from the Sound Village, he got killed by Gaara. I think it was like the last person he ever officially killed in the series. But yeah, of course, this happened like the night before the actual like next round. So yeah. So they pretty much when they got to the actual regular rounds for the Chunin exams, of course they had Naruto fight Neji. Of course, Naruto, the only reason why he would fight Neji was to avenge Hinata's loss. Basically, to avenge what Neji did to Hinata in the previous round. Shinna was supposed to fight Kankuro, but he passed. Shikamaru fought Tamaru, which he decided to... Yeah. And he spent the whole time basically strategizing and using his Shadow Possession Jutsu to possession of her. And he just quit right there. And of course, because of his strategizing, that's what got him promoted to Chonin. Yep. Yeah, and then of course they had that badass battle. Well, I would say the two best fights. I would say the best fights were probably between, definitely between Gaara and Sasuke, and of course Naruto and Neji, and which had also good character development as well throughout arc. I didn't think any of the fights were bad. Just that I think that probably my least favorite probably was Shikamaru versus Tamaru, because it's just basically Shikamaru just standing on the wall trying to use his Shadow Possession Jutsu, basically just dragging the episode out for a while. It was still an interesting looking fight. But yeah. And of course, right after Gaara basically was screaming, that's when basically the Sound and Sand Village decided to attack the Hidden Leaf Village. Now they planned to destroy the village, but they couldn't because, well, they were pretty much easily defeated. I mean, it was awesome seeing all these characters basically just team up and just fight all these other characters, and the only characters, and basically while Gaara and the Sand Siblings were retreating, the only people who went after him were Shikamaru, Shino, and Naruto. They were the only ones who did it. And Shikamaru apparently he decided to free himself from the jutsu and tried just to sleep. So in order to wake him up, basically, of course, Kakashi, basically, he was known for using dogs. He also used dogs during the Zabuza arc. He used a bunch of them. He also used it during the Sasuke. Well, later on, I'll get to that in a minute. He gets to... of course, to get Shikamaru to come along, he basically bites his arm. He bites him twice just to get him along because he's so lazy. Yeah, of course, they go after them. And of course, you have Shikamaru taking on Combined Minds, what looks like a small force of Sound Ninja. And then his sensei shows up, basically beats the crap out of them. Yeah, of course, it's later explained also in Season 9 during Neji's Chronicles that during the time when Naruto was fighting Gaara, Neji and Kiba went to go rescue Hinata, who'd been kidnapped by the Hidden Cloud Village. Well, two people from the Hidden Cloud Village. That's what happened during this point. And they were ordered to rescue her by one of the Hyuga elders because she had been kidnapped. Of course, also, when Neji was defeated, basically, during the course basically was explained that his father basically, he was mad at the Hyuga clan because his father died in the place of the head of the clan. Basically, he thought he was simply murdered, and then turns out he just did it because he felt like it. Yeah, it's explained later on. That Lord Hyuga, though he's called Lord Heshi, I think he's called. Yeah, it's explained that basically he basically told him the truth, and he forgave him for that. Of course, you have Naruto fighting Gaara. I thought that was a really awesome fight. And of course, Shino had his fight with Kankuro. Of course, Kankuro was later basically poisoning him until Shino's father showed up, basically cured him with the poison. And the one way that Naruto was able to beat Shikaku and, of course, Gaara was by summoning a guy who he summoned prior to the final rounds. He summoned the Chief Toad. Basically, this giant toad, a scar across his eye, and with a pipe, and with this knife sword. And he basically, defeated him anyways. Though he wasn't really recognized as a hero like he was later on, but he got pretty much respected after that. Of course, that battle pretty much changed Gaara to where later on in Part 2, he became the Kazekage of the Sand Village because, Orochimaru killed his father off screen. Though they later found his body later on. But pretty much, when it comes to Naruto, it's very much a great show. When it came to Sasuke stuff, I thought it was really cool, and of course, also during the whole fighting, the third Hokage was killed off by Orochimaru, who also, prior to his death, took away Orochimaru's jutsu, which, simply put, he was without jutsu until the end of the fourth Great Ninja War. He was without jutsu for a long time. Firstly, basically, he lost the use of his arms. Basically, if you see in the show, he turned his arms purple, and it's explained that this is the same ritual that the fourth Hokage used to seal up the nine-tailed fox into Naruto. Yeah, it's the same jutsu, though it's a forbidden jutsu. So basically, after the death of the third Hokage, and of course the Sand Village pretty much surrendering afterwards because they had no choice because they were under order from Orochimaru, who basically manipulated them. Of course, the Sand Village became allies with the Hidden Leaf Village, and they still remain up until, pretty much the rest of the time. They're still allies of them. So, not long after the Chunin exams are over, Sasuke has a brief fight with Naruto on the roof of a hospital. Of course, they're stopped by Kakashi, and also when he was training for his exam, he was training for the third round when he was fighting Gaara. Sasuke asked, basically, Kakashi taught Sasuke Chidori, which is currently, because of the fact he lost his arm in the end of Part 2, I'll get to that in a minute. Because of the fact he lost in Part 2, that's the only move he can use. Yep, it's a one-arm move. He doesn't require basically using hand signs. And this is also the move he used to wound Gaara with. Yep. And of course, when he left with the 4 Sound Ninjas, who also were the same people who helped Orochimaru basically assist him with the death of the third Hokage. But prior to that, they had looked for a replacement. Now, the elders were looking toward Jiraiya to take over as the Hokage, but he passed on it. But he said, there is one person I do know of who would be perfect, and she's also one, and this person is also one of the legendary Shani, aside from himself and Orochimaru. Tsunade. A woman basically known for her very terrible gambling skills, known for her nickname as Legendary Sucker, because she sucks at gambling. And she uses a jutsu to keep herself young. Yep. Though a lot of times when she becomes Hokage, she doesn't wear the traditional robes like the third did. She wears the outfit she wore when she first came into the village. Yep, the whole time. Also, whenever the third Hokage when he was in charge, they never came to his office. A lot of the time, he was basically kneeling, and he was sitting on the floor a lot of the time, while the other Hokage used an actual desk chair. I never really understood the concept of that when it came to the show, though I get the fact that's sort of traditional Japanese stuff that some people prefer to do in Japan, but for US it's odd. And also, like traditional Japanese traditions, they do it frequently in the show. Whenever they go into a particular place like a home, they always take off their boots. Here, it doesn't really matter. But over there, it's part of a tradition. It's basically a custom of theirs, where because when you, I haven't seen this in real life, but in the show, basically, when you get into people's home, there's a step before you get into the regular house. And before you get into that step, you have to take off your shoes. And very much all the characters in the show wear boots anyways. Boots that have open toes. I'm not kidding. Though some of them wear sandals, but it's really weird seeing this. I'm like, can't these people wear like full toe boots? Nope. They just wear open toe boots. For no explained reason. Yeah, that part of the anime, both the anime and the manga never actually properly explained. Yeah, I get the fact they're ninja, but why in the world is it they have to show off they have to have their toes exposed? Yeah, this is something I never got in the show. Yeah, so when they got through that, and of course when they found Tsunade, it took a little while to find it, but they did. Of course, they also ran into some members of the Katsuki, villains who basically were brought in to set up Part 2. They only fought two, which was Itachi Uchiha, the man who did the who did the Uchiha clan massacre with Sasuke being no survivor, and his partner Hishumi, I think his name is. He's one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, and he's got this big ass sword, which later on he says it's not for dueling, it's not for just absorbing chakra. And of course Sasuke tries to take him on, but he's not strong enough yet, so he gets trapped in a jutsu. Of course, Kakashi gets trapped in that too when they're in the Leaf Village. But of course, before they run into them, Guy kicks Ishumi in the head. Yeah. Of course, he kind of forgets about that. Then later on, he does remember. So, yeah. Then of course when after after she came in as Hokage, after a little while, they decided to have it where, after she healed up Sasuke and Kakashi, she wanted to check on Lee, and of course she couldn't do anything with him, but she did a little research and okay, I could do this. And of course, even though it was 50-50 chance he wouldn't survive the surgery anyways, but he became a shinobi again. Just by the fact he was like a cripple. But it was nice the fact to do that. And of course, later on after that, they came the failed Sasuke retrieval mission arc, which took up pretty much the rest of Season 3 and part of and the first few episodes of Season 4. And of course, the people who Shikamaru basically just been promoted to a Choni, the people recruited were Naruto, Kiba, Neji, of course Rock Lee came a little bit later, I'm trying to think, who else did he recruit? I think that was it. Just these 4 people. Just these 3 people plus himself. Of course, Shino basically, he still doesn't like the fact he was left out of that mission at all. He basically holds a grudge against Shikamaru for doing that. Yeah. So, they went after them, and of course they all went off their separate ways. Fight several. Oh yeah, he also fight Choji as well. Choji was like the first person he had in mind, but the only reason why he had to bring on Naruto because it was Tsunade's suggestion. Of course, he went to Naruto first, then Choji, then Kiba, then Neji, and of course Rock Lee came a little bit later. They went after them, and of course they later broke off to fight the various Sound Ninja. Choji fought the big one. Neji fought the spider one. Let's see. The 2-headed one, Kiba fought him. Shikamaru fought the red-haired woman one, who basically her only power was a freaking flute. And of course, Naruto, of course, went after the 5th Sound Ninja, who apparently had the ability to, get this, form weapons from his own bones. I'm like, wow. I mean, this guy was pulling various bones from his body. He's pulling his ribs, his digits from his fingers. He even pulled out his freaking spine as a weapon. I'm like, oh my gosh. what is with this guy? I mean, the guy is pulling almost every single bone in his body, and it's explained though that there's a certain amount of bones that in the proper human body. And he says he has a proper renegotiation where basically every time he pulls out a bone, he basically grows a replacement. There's also a substitute bone to go along with it, where it fills in that particular gap. It is really weird, this guy. I mean, first Naruto fights him. He doesn't really get anywhere until Rock Lee shows up completely out of nowhere. I'm kind of glad he showed up anyways. And he fought him for a while. And then, of course, while Neji and Choji defeated theirs by themselves, despite the fact both of them got seriously wounded, while Shikamaru, Rock Lee, and Kiba basically were not having good enough. And then all of a sudden, completely out of nowhere, the Sand Shinobi siblings show up with new attires. Of course, Tamaru went to go rescue Shikamaru, Kankuro rescued Kiba, and of course Gaara rescued Rock Lee. Of course, Rock Lee said, yeah, I don't hold a grudge against you for what he did to me. Yeah, he said he's not a guy who holds grudges. So they fought pretty much side by side, defeating, of course, Kiba basically, who got stabbed, though he's able to survive it. Kankuro was helping defeat the two-headed guy by simply trapping him in a puppet and then stabbing him. Tamaru defeated the red-haired woman by simply waving her fan, summoning a particular monster, a creature, and then she gets killed, like, right there. As for the other guy, well, he gets died because of his unknown illness, which, by the time the show ended, still never properly explained what the heck the illness was. But yeah, and of course, then they had, of course, while everybody's fighting their own battles, and of course, Sasuke and Naruto. Of course, Sasuke, of course, broke out of his barrel he was briefly trapped in. He was briefly held in because he had to apparently die, and of course, get brought back because of the curse mark. So they fought in a place called Final Valley. A fight that pretty much ended with Sasuke defeating Naruto, and basically, it's later explained the reason why he spared him. He basically did it on a whim. And, of course, also after everybody was defeated, pretty much everybody was retreat. Well, Sakura was worried because it had been 2 days since they went out. I'm like, really? It's been 2 days? Okay. So Kakashi is like, okay, Sakura could not go out and retrieve them for some reason, probably because she has a personal because of her attraction to Sasuke. Of course, before Sasuke, she confessed that she's in love with him, and he does not give response back to that at all. He says, "You're annoying." He says this a few times over the course of He says this over the course of both shows that he finds Sakura annoying. Though he later marries her and has a child and has a daughter together. But Kakashi, it's like, okay, let's find these people really quickly. So what did he do? He summons all of his hounds to go on some of his bloodhounds to find everybody. Of course, Paku, who's basically a pug, he went to go find Naruto, wherever else find everybody else. Of course, they also had help from the medical ninja. But yeah, then pretty much like right after they found everybody, of course, Naruto trying to keep his promise with Sakura to bring back Sasuke. And pretty much after that, we decided to put the canon on hold for 85 episodes for a bunch of filler. From the episodes I have watched, the episodes I did... Now, these episodes were good filler. Not bad filler, good filler. Like, the one filler was a follow-up to when they brought back the character from the pilot. Or apparently he went to jail after that. And he broke out, and basically they're trying to... And of course, they also had a thing where they went to the Hidden Sound Village. Basically, found it empty. They went to one of Orochimaru's house, one of his main ones per se. Though Orochimaru himself was never actually confronted in the filler at all. You saw him, but Naruto never confronted him at all. Of course, he basically was doing some training, did a solo mission with Jiraiya, who he called Pervy Sage, by the way, and he calls Tsunade Granny Tsunade because she pokes fun their age. And he calls Jiraiya Pervy Sage because, well, he's a pervert. That's the reason why. He calls Rock Lee Bushy Brows, and he calls his sensei Bushier Brows Sensei, which I have never heard an actual smiling or an actual reaction to them calling him that. They apparently don't have a problem with it. Though Tsunade didn't like it at first that she was called Grandma Tsunade by Naruto, but she basically got used to it because he kept calling her that, despite the fact he told her not to call her that. Yeah. So, of course, he also fought one of the Seven Swordsmen, which this guy, since it was a non-canon episode, him having the swords of one of the Seven Swordsmen, that gets ignored. Though it's kind of a partial follow-up to the first arc of the series, where they referenced Zabuza and they were looking for him. They were asking about him. Yeah, it's really weird. There's also an episode where there's a few episodes where Naruto's working with Kiba and Hinata. Though the first two ended up in failure, third one basically was success. Though in those episodes, also there's one where Naruto teams up with the entirety of Team 8 to look for a bug, to look for Sasuke. Which this is a weird arc where looking for a bug that apparently can match a scent, and this is probably like people who are maybe fans of Naruto basically like, okay, let's have Naruto do weird things. Like hang upside down in a hospital room just trying to confront Tsunade so he can look for Sasuke. And he just happened to be in Hinata's face. Though they didn't make out, but it was weird. It's kind of like a Spider-Man moment. And then her face turns red, and then she just gives him a headbutt. I thought that was so funny. Yeah, and of course she was training also when they were doing the whole mission. Like, heck, she even said it snuck out in the middle of the night to do some training. And Naruto, it's like, oh, he confronts a beautiful woman. Of course, he doesn't know it was Hinata. I don't think Hinata would ever tell him that. Though it's, from what I can tell, she was practicing in the nude because she had her coat and her pants off. Though it could be the fact she could be wearing a lube or something, but though apparently both of them caught colds. It was really weird. And also, when they finally found the bug after looking through this place looking for the bug, yeah, Hinata was the one who spotted the bug. Naruto grabbed it, and of course Naruto was giving her a hug over it. She's like, "Yay, he hugged me." Yeah, I thought that was really kind of funny. But basically, whenever it comes to these people failing their missions, it's usually Naruto's fault, not Hinata's fault, not everybody else's fault. It's usually Naruto's fault. But when Naruto failed this mission, instead of having Tsunade go after him for failing the mission, Sakura decided to chase him out of the office because it was over Sasuke. It was so funny. And especially another filler arc when he teamed up with Kiba and Hinata. Says, and we try her sandwich like, you make somebody a good wife someday. Of course, later on, his wife. And of course, she's smiling at that. Of course, this was a quick little two-part to catch some thief who apparently stole some feudal lord's tea. Even though it turned out the guy was an actual murderer who framed a bounty hunter for this murder. Yeah. But some of the filler episodes were never terrible. One filler episode was introduced a new village, village hidden in the stars. Like, okay. And they introduced a one called the Kazaragi, I think it's called. It was never officially recognized in the show as one of the as an actual title, but apparently they'd gone through about 3 of them at that point, and the third one would be killed by his possible successor because they were protecting this star thing. But one of my other favorite arcs of these filler ones was basically the one where they were sent to investigate a ghost. Yeah, it was a horror arc. And it was also another one where Naruto teamed with Kiba and Hinata to go to this mansion, this castle, which apparently had been haunted. Now, when I read about this episode, I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. And it was an interesting little standalone one, but yeah. But none of the filler episodes were particularly too bad, per se, during the filler arcs, but yeah. The last one they did was when Gaara and the siblings became teachers, and Gaara's only student had been kidnapped by the main bad guy of the arc, so they decided to do a replay of the Sasuke retrieval arc by doing Operation Return the Favor, by simply having all 11 Geni go and rescue, 10 Geni and 1 Choni, basically go rescue Gaara's student. But yeah, and this arc is pretty much one of the reasons why that Gaara is my favorite young male character who is not Naruto. Because the guy basically apparently like, okay, this gourd is pretty much out of sand. He says, I'm never out of sand. So he pulls sand. He makes a sand spear out of his own sand armor and stabs the bad guy. Yeah, and of course later on, Naruto goes on his 3-year journey. So overall, basically, that's Naruto. I will go over Naruto Shippuden in next couple parts per se. This is like a part 1 of like 3 or 4. So yeah, it's a good show to watch. I also recommend reading the manga, also, but it's a long manga. Basically, the Naruto show is based upon part 1, the first 222 chapters. Naruto Shippuden is based upon the rest of the manga, though it's like that for the first 20 seasons. Currently, they're adapting the light novels. That's what they're adapting right now. But I'll get to those when I get to them. Okay. But that's it for this review. I know this one was really long. I've never done one this long before. But yeah, Naruto review part 1. Naruto anime review part 1. Okay. So stay tuned for part 2 soon. Okay. Until then, see you there. Bye.